I'm Rebecca King-Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Sean Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance. Today on Conversations on Dance, we are joined by Evelyn Cisneros-Legate, Director of the Ballet West Academy, and Allison DeBona, Principal of the Ballet West Academy Park City location and founder of artÉmotion. Both women take us through how their careers as professional ballerinas impacted the work they do today as educators, how they are actively growing Ballet West training programs, and why Ballet West Academy is an ideal landing spot for students of all interest levels and abilities. If you're a parent or student looking for summer programs in the 2024 season, visit academy.balletwest.org. Good morning, Evelyn and Allie. Thank you both for joining us. We're so excited to hear about the work you're doing today, but we always love a little catch-up moment. Allie, we haven't spoken to you on the podcast since, I don't know, maybe the 10th episode or something.
Yeah,
you were very early on.
Yeah, when we first started, I was so excited for you guys, and I appreciated being on there. And so it's nice to see you guys again and to see how much you've done in the meantime. I'm always paying attention still to everything. So congratulations.
Thank you. That's so nice.
Yeah,
Very much. But we want to maybe hear a few of the things that have happened in your life. I don't know, in the past 7 years. Let's just do the TLDR version.
Well, I now have 2 babies.
Congratulations.
Thanks. I have almost 5-year-old. He's going to turn 5 on the 13th of December. And then I just have a newborn. So a lot has changed for Rex and I. We both retired in 2022, so just last year. And now I am principal of the Ballet West Academy's Park City campus, which has been an awesome shift for us. Rex is up there as interim while I'm on maternity leave, but he was there working as operations manager all last year. So it just felt like the right thing for us. You know, we've been at Ballet West for 15 years. You guys know that artÉmotion has been involved with Ballet West since 2017. And it just felt right as our summer intensives had, funneled kids into the Ballet West year-round programs. It's just been a really nice transition for all of us, just being principal of the school, to be able to speak even more in depth about what Ballet West Academy offers year-round. And so coming to our summer intensives has very much weight for when parents are investing. So I think, it's been an easy transition for us. We were ready to get off the stage. It was hard our last year when Ajax was still a young guy and it was Nutcracker season and 40 shows. And between Sugar Plum and Snow Queen, we were sled riding. And that's when we kind of looked at each other and we're like, this isn't going to work. And the nap time that we all take between shows. Yeah, that was gone. Yeah. It just got exhausting. And we knew we wanted to have another kid too. And so, we're really happy. And so it's really nice to see you guys. Michael, I love seeing all the setting of ballets you're doing.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, really.
Fingers crossed someday Ballet West will do a peck piece and I'll come out to you guys.
We were supposed to. And I know then I remember him coming to see us dance at the Joyce. It was a big deal. And then, Adam was like, yes, he loves the company. We're going to do this. And then, COVID happened.
Right.
That was the year of right then. So, I'd love to see Ballet West do a peck piece. It would be really cool. Yeah. So yeah.
Actually, I was going to stage that one. I mean, I guess because it's not gossip. It's well over, but yeah. But hopefully it comes back. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, that 2020 year threw some things off, but it's in the past. So yeah, I'd love to see that happen. I'll be in the audience for that.
Yeah. I want to hear really quickly about artÉmotion and how it is connected to Ballet West Academy for those of our listeners who aren't totally sure about it.
Yeah. So I started the company in 2014, actually. And we were, Rex and I, and a lot of important people who still work for us, actually, we were in Cleveland, Ohio for a 2-week summer intensive. And that came off of Breaking Point. I remember telling you guys, I said, you know what? I'm just going to put it out there. I don't have any money to start this, but I'm just going to announce it on social media. We filled a 2-week intensive and Adam came out right away. So he's been a part of these summer intensives since day one. And, at the time, Ballet West was trying to get more touring on the East Coast. And, the best way for that to happen is to get families involved. So it's sort of that was on our mind. And we talked to Adam about that in depth. And we're like, look, we're willing to start this on the East Coast. I'm from the East Coast. Let's try this.
Mm-hmm.
So then in 2017, we decided to bring the choreographic workshop, which is 45 kids, into Salt Lake City, so away from the East Coast. And it's worked out really well. And so the idea behind that was just to give kids an opportunity to be choreographed on like they're in a company. And it was just kind of an idea to make the Ballet West program a little bit more competitive, because no one was really doing that at the time, although a lot of people are now doing it. But it's been an incredible feeder system for, the trainee program and the PTD program. And then we are now overseeing the St. George Summer Intensive. So Cleveland was still happening, but then in 2020, they didn't really want kids on campus, or in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And so that now has moved down to St. George, and Adam had asked us to oversee that program. I think that was right before Evelyn started, or she was coming in like right then and there, and there was a huge transition. So that's what we're overseeing now, and it's grown to like 130 kids.
Wow.
So it's all really nice because, Ballet West, the downtown program, is enormous. It has high quality. I mean, everything about it is incredible. Adam looks at trainees from that program, but we wanted to make sure we had a program for kids that really weren't ready for that yet, but that we still wanted to show that Ballet West was invested in their futures. And so that's really what like St. George has become. And so, we see a lot of kids from St. George now at the downtown campus and in the downtown program. So it's really been an awesome thing to see families invest in Ballet West. And I think that was the whole point, right, Evelyn?
Yeah, it was actually. Thank you, Allison. Yeah, I came on in August, and then the very next summer, it was like Cleveland was having trouble with their booking and shutting down and hosting artÉmotion. So it made absolute sense. We'd already made the connection with St. George. And so it made absolute sense to bring artÉmotion down into there. And it's just grown tremendously. It's such a wonderful venue, actually. It has everything very near, very supportive. And it culminates in the show down there, as our 5-week intensive does here when we partner with the choreographic workshop.
Right. Evelyn, we're so happy to have you on, but since it's your first time and you've had such an illustrious career as a performer, we have to hear a little bit about that. So take us back a little bit and tell us about your experience performing at San Francisco Ballet, maybe how you initially became interested in the company and what your rise through the ranks was there. And
Wow. Well, you're going way back now.
You want to go way back.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I'm glad that both of you have had experience within the Bay Area. It was such a wonderful time for San Francisco Ballet, really coming back on the map. It almost folded. I came in 2 years after they were out on the streets with tin cans, saved the ballet, and brought the ballet really back into a successful path. It's so well supported in the Bay Area. I started there as an apprentice, fresh out of high school in 1976, and had a wonderful 23-year career with San Francisco Ballet. And yeah, it was my home. Michael was my mentor. I had the opportunity to work with Lou Christensen, who is the third brother, right? So it kind of came full circle that now I'm at Ballet West. And their vision. And, it was just a glorious, glorious time. I mean, I had a career that was beyond my dreams or expectations. Yeah. And I'm so thankful and grateful for that. And, I just feel that sense of responsibility for that great career that I have or had to now pass on to the next generation. Because, I had an opportunity to work with like the best people in the industry at the time, and to share that with the youth growing up, and they're so hungry for it, and it's their turn. And, I'm so blessed by being here with Ballet West and working with Adam, who has a vision and really does. He's like all the directors of companies throughout the nation always talk about how their school should be a feeding ground for the company, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Adam actually hires people from the school. We have 75% of the dancers in the company came through the academy.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's a tremendous support. And I love that. And, he is just an inspiration to work with. And we see that with our students. And, we brought on incredible artists like Allison, like Rex, who have had a professional career, who know what it's like to be a professional dancer and are able to share things with our youth that others can't. Those are things, as those are things we can't learn in school, right? No matter how good a school is. Having lived it is tremendous and gives you those great enriched experiences to pass on to the youth today. And my faculty, my whole full-time faculty here, everybody's worked as a professional dancer. So it's really, really fun.
When we had Adam on the podcast a few weeks ago, he was talking about that was one of his goals throughout his directorship, would be to have this feeder from the school and to really have this umbrella that Ballet West was under. And so it's so nice to then follow up with this conversation to kind of see how that's happening. But I wonder too, I want to just kind of rewind quickly to after you retired, after 23 years at San Francisco Ballet, what were your intentions moving forward and how you wanted to stay within ballet? And then what led you ultimately to Ballet West?
Okay, thank you. So all growing up as a Mexican American, I was the first person of color when I first joined the company for a number of years. And so I always felt a responsibility to be that role model for those younger kids. When I was growing up, I had a picture of Maria Tallchief on my wall, but that was about it. Mm-hmm. I couldn't find anybody else with brown skin like me. So I was very aware that I could be that kind of role model for others. I also was dancing through the time where ABT was locked out. Joffrey almost folded. And so I felt a real passion for making sure that the art form that I dedicated my whole life to at that point didn't go away. Mm-hmm. So I felt very responsible for the art form moving it forward. So I went from retiring from the stage to working in outreach with San Francisco Ballet. I was ballet education coordinator, and I did the student matinee performances. I would choreograph the little bar section and the pas de deux examples, and then the company would perform like a one act rodeo or something else like that. And then I would create study guides to go along with that. I created a program that was called Dance Education on Tour, so I could still travel with my husband and our little baby. And we go into the communities and just instill a lifeblood of excitement. Invite those students that came to do workshops with us into the dress rehearsals, give them a short study guide to take home. And those performances sold out. So that was really wonderful. I'd always liked teaching. When I was in fourth grade, I had a little ballet school in my garage over the summer for my friends. So it's always been kind of a part of my life. So I was able to do ballet education with San Francisco Ballet for 7 years. And then we moved, my husband, Stephen Legate, and I moved to Southern California while he finished up his doctorate studies to be a chiropractor. And then we were invited to Boston Ballet, where I started the North Shore studio there and built that up for Boston Ballet School. And then I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, because my husband hated being back in the snow and we wanted to get to the west, closer to family. And by then we had 2 children, and we lived in Albuquerque. I worked with NDI for 7 years. And then Adam called me and was like, "No, I want you to come and direct my academy." And so he made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
So back to the snow you went.
Yes, but less snow.
Less snow.
Yeah. Allie, I'm wondering if you, similar to Evelyn, like, did you always have aspirations, once you retired, maybe things fell into place pretty clearly, but think about when you were younger, did you always know that you were going to stay in the field and help, the next generation?
Yes and no. I actually had quit ballet completely for quite some time. So like eighth grade until almost my senior year, I decided I wanted to be normal. I was a cheerleader. I was on drill team. I don't know. I think I'd gotten burnout. I was one of those crazy young people like we all were. I was like 6 or 7 years old and at ballet from 4 until 9 p.m., and then my
Yeah.
mom, because I just was obsessed. Like I'm sure we all were, we see that with anyone who's really come professional. You look back at like the time commitment we've all made. And then my
Yeah.
mom was due to have a baby and I was due to go to SAB. And I said I wanted to be home when this baby was born. It was my little sister. I had brothers my whole life, and this was 14 years later. And I just remember saying like, I don't want to dance anymore. Big mistake. So I end up coming back, and for some reason, I don't know if it's just like the oldest child thing. I've always just been very nurturing to people and just always wanted to help people. And then I went to college. I ended up going to Indiana because I had taken so much time off. I don't think my mom really like believed that I wanted to be professional, and it was probably extremely unlikely. Like most people are taking that much time off.
Right.
So I went to Indiana, and they actually required us to teach from 3-year-olds all the way up to elective students. So you had some people who were in their master's program, doctorate programs who were like 35, 40. So that's actually where like my adult teaching passion came in. That was like 20 some years ago. So that's really where it started was, I was teaching babies on Saturday mornings, 3-year-olds, and then at night at 8 p.m. teaching the adults. And so I had so much experience just in those 4 years. And then I spent 1 year at PBT at their graduate program. I was finishing my degree and I was taking open classes down there. And Bob Vickery, who was the company manager, was like, "Excuse me, who are you? What are you doing with your life?" And I was like, "Well, I'm in college. I have 1 more year left and I'm supposed to go back on campus." He's like, "No, you need to be at PBT." So I spent a year there, finished my degree online, but then was teaching at PBT in the young classes. So, I just fell in love with it. For some reason, especially up in Park City, I'm feeling more connected to the young people. And I think that's because I have young babies and I see how hard it is to navigate that age and how important it is that they get, the quality that we all really need in order to become professional. But we're having, I know, a lot of fun with all the ages. And I don't know. There's something about, and we all, Evelyn could tell you, when you see these kids succeed, it's just like, what do you have a career for? Because it ends so early, relatively. And it's like, how is it supposed to continue? And this is the only way. It's like, in our art form, it is struggling in some ways to keep relevant. But there's always something that we can give. So like, how I try to relate to families all the time, especially who are fighting for their incomes, this activity, that activity. It's like, why ballet? And it's like, it's not just ballet. It's not just the passion of the art form, but like, how can we make sure that these kids are serviced? So if they don't want to do ballet, the investment is real for them. So I think that comes from my college background as well, just seeing the other side of it. And so, in Park City, it's a really unique community. These are people who are important people. I'll just say it that much. They have really high-ranking jobs in huge corporations or, CEOs of this company. And it's like, they're very, very, very busy. So I made sure that we were like developing things up there that would speak more highly to them. So we do have a college program in Park City where I bring in colleges every year because, you're like, if you're not wanting to be professional, don't quit. Because on a resume, when you've been dedicated to one thing for that long, that looks really good when you're applying to school, So I don't know. I just always loved helping these kids and just seeing their faces and when they accomplish amazing things has been really special.
Yeah. I love that.
I just wanted to add on top of that and layer on what Allison had said in that the whole academy want to raise the best humans, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that most of them aren't going to go on to be professional dancers, but we're empowering them with that self-confidence and the ability to focus on something until they finish a project, to work well with others, to be confident and be, have wonderful, self-esteem. So all of those things are things that we work on with our students all the way through, so they can be the best human beings that you want to hire for any job.
Mm-hmm.
And what I also think, Evelyn, you can, add something to this, but this is how I look at the academy in the state that it is now, because we do have 4 campuses, which are not too close, but not too far away from each other, is that there's something for every level of dedication at Ballet West Academy, which I do think is unique from other schools. You often lose those kids that when they get to a certain age, like I did, it was like, I either had to quit because there wasn't something part-time to keep, that alive. And I feel like at Ballet West Academy, between all 4 campuses, there are opportunities for dancers at different commitment levels. And a huge adult program. So people who want to come back to ballet at every single campus. And so, I think that speaks highly to the people who are in charge of the school, and to Adam, because he's an amazing person where he's open to anybody's ideas. And if they make sense to him and he sees like a goal behind it that makes sense, or, that he's passionate about, he's always game for it. I don't feel like he ever steps on anyone's toes, really, when trying to build new programming at the school. And so, and I've seen that personally just at the Park City campus, going from, I think we had 70 kids when we first started, and now we've over doubled it in just a year,
Wow.
And so it's just really cool stuff. And I'm not saying, we have Evelyn and Sarah, all women who have families. I do think that has something to do with it, because, I don't know, we understand the commitment of lifestyle, right, Evelyn?
Sure.
It's hard. It's like, how can we help a family who can't drive around? Well, you know what? Then there's this,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's such an interesting point that I don't know. I guess I hadn't really thought about. You just presume that most academies attached to a company, like that's the end game, is that we're building, ostensibly these students can get hired in the company, and then the others, it's like, well, whatever happens, happens. But like that balance between people who do it recreationally and people who are, diehard professionals, that's just a huge spectrum. And I feel like it tends to fall one or the other. You either have like, Dolly Dinkles that are like, oh, we're just here to like do this because like, it's basically babysitting. And then you have people that are very, very serious. So like filling out that middle ground a little bit sounds like just such a great option for so many kids that otherwise would have probably not wanted to do either.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And they can feel fulfilled, and they can get the experience and the joy from the movement, without having to commit, 6 days a week, 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting. It's making me think of a studio I taught at one time. The artistic director said to me, well, we don't have to be that serious with these kids. They're not going to be professionals. And to me, that just felt so sad, because I was like, I know that, and they know that, and that's fine. But I think they still want to learn the right way to do it. They're here for a reason. And just because they might not see this as their career path, there's so many other ways they can be involved in the arts too, and like learn an appreciation for it. And so I wonder what you would say to maybe even a parent that's like, well, they're not going to be a professional dancer,
Well, I always bring up my brother, who's now working at Ballet West too, in multiple facets, but he was a musical theater artist who took ballet, and he had booked so many more shows because he knew how to do ballet. And so like, that's an important thing too. It's like, if you're in this route, this actually services you, because they come few and far between, and he knew how to partner,
right?
Relatively, not the extent of like a professional ballet dancer, but he knew how to handle a young lady properly without killing them. So I don't know. Yeah, it's just incredible to see how much the academy grows. I wanted to say this when Evelyn was talking, because I was here the first year Adam came in. But the school was literally as big as needing just like one studio or two max. And
that is crazy.
Yeah, and now there are 4 campuses, 5 on the way,
Wow.
and and you're just like, holy crap! And that's only in 15 years,
Yeah.
which is
Really
actually
amazing.
a really short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's cool. It's cool to see.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, even though it's only November, it's really crazy how fast this is all going to happen. And students and parents alike are going to be shifting gears towards thinking about summer programs. So we'd love to hear a little bit about what Ballet West is offering for summer programs and how people can get in touch with the Academy and feel out what's going to be right for their student.
We have an array of summer programs available. I would check our website, but we have our ballet center here in downtown Salt Lake City. Our summer intensive runs for 5 weeks from June 10th to July 12th. The choreographic workshop with artÉmotion is from July 1st to the 12th. And that is more by audition. Just the upper level students will be able to participate in that. But we will be doing a showing this year from our regular 3-week and our 5-week Ballet West Academy students. Then we have 2 weeks in St. George, as Allison had mentioned. That runs from July 22nd to August 2nd. It's a 2-week program. It's a great opportunity. It's very performance oriented. So the students start working on repertory to perform at the end right away. Classes are great. We've brought in many students who have an extra opportunity to show their performance quality on stage, and then are brought into the professional training division, which we hold here at the downtown campus for the fall. We are partnering this year. So partnerships is really the wave of the future. I feel very strongly about that. I think it's really difficult for any arts organization now to stand on its own 2 feet. So the partnership with artÉmotion has been successful. We are starting a partnership with the Next Generation School in Tampa. And that runs from June 17th to July 19th. And that gives us really an East Coast visibility, which we haven't had before. So we're affiliated school with them for this summer going forward. We're also starting a relationship with the Hale Theater, which is a huge musical theater organization here in Utah. And so we're doing a 2-week intensive with them from July 15th to July 29th. That will culminate in a performance at the Hale Theater stage. And then we're also doing a collaboration with SALT, which is a contemporary company here in Salt Lake City. And that will be August 19th through the 23rd. So we have a lot of options for a lot of students in many different capacities, different locations. So yeah, come check us out. Check the website to get on. We will be starting our summer intensive audition tour in January. Okay. So that will run January and February. We will also have one here in Salt Lake City, early January.
And do those have to be in person, or do you guys have virtual options as well?
We have video options. So we also have the stipulations of what we'd like to see in a video presentation. Right. And so you can have the opportunity to audition through video as well.
Very good. It seems like the dates also are really good for this, where it could be kind of like you could go to one summer course and then also another. Like it really is a great opportunity. And like we're talking about people with different levels of commitment. That's also something available to them. I can tell from what you just presented.
It's great. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. Can I also add that we have 2 young dancer summer intensives. So we have a 2-week for 10 to 12, and then we have a 1-week that we just added this year for 10 to 12. That's one's in Park City and one's in Salt Lake. So that was something that's become very successful too, with getting the youngsters in there who maybe aren't ready for a very, very long day,
right?
But are very dedicated. So and like you said, they do actually hop around. So a lot of the young dancers will go to Park City for 2 weeks, take a week or so off, and then come to St. George. We've seen that very often. So it'll be cool to see how it matriculates this summer with so many opportunities. Pretty exciting.
Yeah. I mean, that's really interesting. I think that's great because it's just circling back to like what you were talking about, that different people have different needs, certainly, but also different desires. And you could choose to, you can kind of map out your own summer of how intense you want it to be. I mean, not to be too like, well, when I was growing up, but like I remember the only thing that we all did our 5-week programs, and then the only other thing you could do was Suzanne Farrell program would be in August. Otherwise, you were just like on your sofa until
Yeah.
and you show
Till
up at the beginning
September.
of the year, like, yeah, it was
Right.
terrible.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah. So
the other thing I see and that I really like about how it all works out is, there are definitely situations where you see a family being like, well, we have this family vacation planned this week. Can they come to the summer intensive for 2 weeks and then leave? And you're like, well, no, because, it's important that you commit to the entire time. But instead
yeah,
of just like saying, okay, that's not going to work out for you, it's like, well, actually, there's this program.
Mm-hmm.
And you can stay the whole time and still be seen by all the important faculty and staff. And Adam is present at every situation, and Evelyn is present at every situation. So it does get you seen for the year-round program, no matter where you end up,
right.
which I think is super important to parents.
Mm-hmm.
And even with the young dancer, it's like, okay, maybe you're too young to move across country, but here's your vision in 5 years.
Yeah.
Your goal is to be at the downtown intensive and then become a PTD and then become a trainee. And,
Mm-hmm.
and
I also,
they were just at the
yeah.
Kennedy Center, and a lot of those kids just performed with us. And then we saw them we actually had an audition on Sunday just while we were down there, kind of took advantage of being at the Kennedy Center, and we saw a pretty good turnout. And I know it was super early, but
Why
it all
not?
works. Yeah.
Gotta get on. Yeah. Yeah. And also, I just want to circle back to some of those partnerships. I love, we love Next Generation Ballet. We've done interviews with them in the past, and SALT is an amazing organization. I think it's just so cool. I mean, with Next Generation, you have this East Coast outpost that, connects you to a different part of the country. And then with SALT, you're having all this contemporary work that, again, in my generation, sometimes you find out too late. It's like if you become so solely focused on classical ballet, which of course we love, then you might not, and maybe that's not working out, and you don't know that you have this other route that is going to suit your physicality and your artistic capabilities as well so much better. So you're already giving your students like all these other outlets and possibilities, and I think that's just very cool.
Absolutely. And that was part of our motivation, was to give those dancers that maybe won't have a classical ballet career, and yet we all know that companies now, you have to be able to do everything. No company exists on solely classical ballet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think contemporary work was kind of underserved, like definitely in my generation. And that's what I don't want to see with this next generation. Improvisation is something that I'm really feel very strongly about. Our students need to learn how to do it, and so it's part of our in our curriculum. Because I was horrified by improvisation. Billy Forsythe said, "Okay, now improvise for a minute and a half," and I panicked. And I never want our students to have to feel that way.
That's so great. Michael and I talk about that all the time. There's nothing worse you can hear in an audition I thought I would panic.
Well, yeah, but it's just like any other skill. Like if it was something that we had grown up with, like at the same time you're learning, Grand Allegro, you get a little taste of that, then it's less horrifying. Right. And instead you're 25 and someone's like, okay, now improv, and it's like, oh, I am choreographing this before the show, baby. Don't you think that
I'm wondering for like the pre-professional student who's, planning out right now where they're going to audition and looking at that whole schedule, why should they add Ballet West to their list for auditions?
I think Ballet West has an incredible training ground. I mean, we care a lot about them. Here they can come and we have hour and 45-minute technique classes every day. On top of that, then they'll have a point class or a variations class or a pas de deux. They all get pas de deux. All the professional training division students get pas de deux at least once a week. Then we have a repertory. They do 3 performances every year, 1 contemporary performance and a winter show and a summer show or a spring show. Mm-hmm. So, we get character. We have an incredible character teacher. They get flamenco. Of course, they get contemporary that includes improvisation, conditioning. I mean, it's a great place to be and to train. And Ballet West has a great rep, and it's moving forward and expanding their productions every year. So, also living in Salt Lake City is a great place to live.
Do you mind if I add a few things?
Please.
Get in there.
So I really want to stress again, just like how important it is that Adam is present so often in all of the summer intensives. And also his dedication to making sure that we all keep track of kids that he's very serious and interested in. So that's something that happens at Ballet West. We have constant communication. Well, Adam saw this kid, this dancer at this competition or at this master class, and then we track it and we make sure we go after them and say, hey, look, the director of the school is interested in you. And, again, when you go back to investing in schools, right, if you do have a dancer who is very serious about ballet, what better situation to be in than one that is directly affiliated with a company of the magnitude that Ballet West is, which is a top 10 company now. I think you guys saw that data coming out. Ballet West is top 10 in terms of budget, and, its contract is incredible. I always talk about this, and you guys both know, like AGMA wise, when you're pushing young kids towards a career, I'm very adamant after, negotiating 4 Ballet West contracts, but also just seeing, how important it is to make sure that these dancers are taken care of when they're in a professional company, because not all companies are the same. Looking at Ballet West's actual contract is the one that most companies mirror their contracts from. So
we did that at MCB. I think,
I know you
definitely
guys
read it. I feel like we corresponded about it.
That's why I remember talking to you about it, because it was like, Ballet West is cutting edge in terms of what we've negotiated. And Ballet West was an AGMA until I think about 20 years ago. They were operating in their own accord, and then right before I came in, they made a huge push towards unionizing. But what's also unique is, from what I know, is that like Adam's collaboration with the dancers in terms of how that contract is actually, put into effect. Of course there are situations where you go back and forth, but he also was an AGMA rep. And so he really respects it. And, I just feel, how Evelyn was saying earlier about, the competitiveness of companies and where are their jobs. And when you get up and you move across the nation, like we all did, to a new city, how are you actually investing in your life? And, so one of the things, like also just being a mother, had a baby while I was dancing. I'm like, how are you taken care of after you have a baby? Ballet West is top of the line. There's paternity leave at Ballet West.
Wow.
And I can't tell you how many parents I actually get feedback from. It's like, it's an inspiration for our daughters to come to a place where like being a mother is so highly respected, because we're so lucky. Evelyn and Sarah, amazing with all of us with families. And it's like, why not invest in a situation where your kid is seeing probably the best of the best situations in terms of, a job and what that means. And the rep is, like she said, incredible. Like I couldn't have dreamt about moving to Salt Lake City to dance what I danced here. So I just think, coming to the summer intensive is really the best way to get here year round. And there's housing now. Yeah. Wow, which is the first year there's student housing. And so that's been amazing to see too, that Evelyn and Sarah made that happen, because it's been a dream of Ballet West since I got into the company. I remember the board talking about it, and to see it actually come to fruition has been incredible.
It isn't. It's amazing to see those students come in and they're all housed safely, and it's not far from the ballet. We've also been approved for our international student visas. Yeah. So we're able to accept international students now too, which is awesome.
I love that. I love that you spoke to the company too, because I do think that's an important thing for pre-professional students to be thinking about. Like, why not? And also when you're talking about the artistic director, Adam, tracking the dancers, that is not super common, I don't think, especially
I don't hear about it. I don't hear about it or see that very often, where you're like, there are establishments, like look at SAB, like you have to be at SAB in order to get into the company, obviously. But I think, moving into one of the top 10 companies in the nation, it's important that the school really does show that. And like she said, 75% of the students, and, probably more, they just maybe choose to go and dance somewhere else.
Sure. Yeah.
But Adam has a wide verse of individuals in the company too. Like, obviously it's always been known as the tall company. And yes, there are guys that were 6'6" in the company, my brother-in-law included. But I mean, that's not the case. It's not just that, it's from top to bottom. So if we can also make sure that that's known too, because so often it's like, I don't know, my dancer's shorter. You're like, what does that mean? What is that? No, but that's not how like Adam really operates. Like, you see every kind of dancer at Ballet West.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think any one of us dance the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is,
I think
a Joffrey thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that connection between the company and the school, it's just such an integral part of the organization. That's how they should be. That makes sense. You are training the dancers of the future, and I love how involved Adam is.
He's very involved. I love that he
ahead.
Also this year is going on some of the summer intensive audition tours.
Wow.
So he'll actually be out on the tours helping us choose dancers that he's interested in. He also teaches in the 5-week summer intensive here in Salt Lake. So yeah, it's wonderful involvement.
Yeah.
So I guess for the last question, we talked about how Ballet West Academy has grown from an organization where they needed one studio to house everyone, and now you have how many campuses? Four campuses.
4. And we're working on another campus.
And we're working on a 5th. So, I mean, that's just incredible growth in such a short period of time. But what kind of growth are you guys hoping to see from the organization in the next 15 years? What would you, Allie and Evelyn, love to see for the school?
I'd love to see pretty much more of the same, to see it not be sacrificed for our growth, for the quality that provide for the students, that the students and the parents can know that by sending their students to Ballet West Academy, they're sending them into a place that is more nurturing and supportive of the individual, their child, because there's nothing more precious than your children. And to send them somewhere to be trained at the highest level, that is my vision and my goal, that we not be compromised by the quality that we offer to them by our size.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Allison?
I just would love for parents to know also what an amazing city Salt Lake is and how much it's growing. When I first moved here, you could drive down the street from one place to the other in 30 seconds. I think last year, 400,000 more people moved into Utah. And so it's an up and coming city. There's a lot to do. It's amazing. I think there's this idea that moving to Salt Lake City isn't mainstream, or, a lot of the goals, I feel like in our day, we keep saying that, like back in our day, right? But like how many companies, how many companies did you actually know about? Let's think about it. ABT, San Francisco Ballet, Joffrey Ballet, Houston Ballet, and Miami City Ballet, right?
Yeah.
Then you heard about a Pennsylvania Ballet. Then you heard about a Ballet West, but it's like that's in the past. And so if you want to have, like, again, amazing rep, amazing contract, being able to live on your pay, being in a city that's on the verge of just like blowing up, this is the place to be. This is the place to send your dancer and to invest in, especially if like being in a huge city kind of scares you. I feel like that was my mom. She's like, you want to move to New York City? What? And you're like, so right. I just think that that's important. I'd love to just see parents like investing in that as well whenever they're sending their kids to the school. But yeah, I think that all of the fruit of everyone's labor, like with the housing, the visas, the opportunities to perform, we should say that our academy students are eligible to perform in all of the full-lengths, and also the Ballet West 2 productions, which are on the docket as if they're a professional production because they are really produced that way. But it's the Ballet West 2 company and all of our own students. Now, the Nutcracker is open to anyone in the community to audition, because I think that was a Willem Christensen desire that Adam has upheld for, he wanted it to be a community situation, but still many of our students. But no matter what campus you're at, you have the ability to be on stage next to the principal ballerina. And so, yeah, I just would love to see, like she said, more of the same. Just I'm excited to see what happens with what has, been born in the past year, like the housing and the visas and just the curriculum that has grown insanely. And just creating well-rounded individuals.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, thank you both so much for joining us. It was so fun to get a look into Ballet West Academy. We hope that our young listeners will go to your website and audition to be a part of it. You sold me, I'm
going to be auditioning.
Well, when you go to the actual website, there is a drop down that's dedicated just to the summer intensive. And it lists every program that we have. It lists the audition tour, and it also lists what you're going to be seeing when you're placed in each level, which I think was something that was added just last year. But parents can go in and see what's expected from level A, B, C, D, St. George, young dancer. So really, we just tried to make sure that parents were as educated as possible when deciding where to go to.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure.
Thank you. Conversations on Dance is part of the ACAST Creator Network. For more information, visit conversationsondancepod.com.